Good morning. There I am. It's Thursday, April 23rd, 2026. You are watching the TMI Show with Ted Rall and Manila Chan. Sitting in for Manila is producer Robby West, waiting for him to join. I just sent him the link, so he should be present here presently. Manila, in case you didn't hear yesterday, gave birth to her daughter yesterday. So she is taking care of that as a busy new mom. And we are very much looking forward to hearing all about that when she resurfaces. But so far, we have not heard anything. So when we have any news about that and how she's doing and all that, we will certainly let you know. I don't know what's going on with Robby, but he will be here. Just so you know, we will be doing the DMZ America podcast coming up at 11 a.m. Eastern time. That's with Scott Stantis. That's every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern time. And it comes up today. We're going to be doing, we'll have Marshall Ramsey as our guest. I am not seeing Robby. Oh my God. Let me just send him a link. He is not, I think he is not clicking the right one. Robby, come join. Robby, there he is. I knew that could. There you are. This is why we need two hosts and a producer instead of one host and a producer. This is why it takes at least three people to make a podcast.
For sure. It's always wild. One of the things we're going to be working on, and by we, I mean me and Ted, is this weekend we're going to see if transitioning from StreamYard over to Rumble Studio makes this easier and has less glitches. That's the hope.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain things that we're hoping to eliminate, like, for example, having to have that long countdown between shows, which I know is probably irritating to some people. It would be to me. So, and we appreciate you being patient through that. So, all right. So, TMI Show is, of course, a lighter take on the news than Deprogram. And just a reminder, Marshall Ramsey, the former cartoonist for Mississippi Today, syndicated cartoonist, long denizen of the Deep South, is going to be joining Scott and I on DMZ coming up in about 52 minutes. And all right, so Robby, shall we just get to the news?
Yeah, let's just do it. Let's just jump right on in.
All right, let's do it. Okay, so our lead story today: the biological parents of a baby at the center of an embryo mix-up have been identified, according to the attorneys for the Florida woman who gave birth to the infant. Tiffany Score and Stephen Mills sued the Fertility Center of Orlando, as well as its head reproductive endocrinologist, in January after they found out that their newborn baby, Shea, was not genetically related to either of them. But wait, there's more. Score and Mills, who are both white, yeah, you can see where this is going, had undergone in vitro fertilization at the Longwood, Florida clinic and decided to pursue genetic testing because their baby displayed the physical appearance of a racially non-Caucasian child, their lawsuit says. Can you imagine how carefully they had to word that in the lawsuit, right? And by the way, where's Longfield? Do you have any idea where Longwood is? I don't know.
It's in the Central Peninsula.
Okay. So this month, Mara Hatfield, an attorney representing Score and Mills, told NBC News that DNA testing revealed that Shea is 100% South Asian. Hatfield decided that the clinic said that it had added that the clinic had identified one South Asian couple from 16 sets of potential parents whose egg retrieval and embryo transfer dates were around the same time as Score's. In court documents, the defendants have not disputed that Score and Mills' baby should be, but is not, the genetic child of the plaintiffs, and that they said they were cooperating with requests to help identify the girl's biological parents. Score and Mills said this week that a match confirmed the baby's genetic parents. They said that the couple's identity, however, would remain confidential. This ends one chapter in our heartbreaking journey, but it raises new issues that will have to be resolved, the statement released by their law firm said. Only one thing is as absolutely certain today as it was on the day our daughter was born. We will love and will be this child's parents forever. Their attorney said there are still questions over what happened to the embryos believed to belong to Score and Mills. In other words, is there a South Asian parents who are raising a white baby, although there's no indication that they resulted in a child being born to another couple. But it hasn't been ruled out. Neither the defendants nor their attorneys responded to requests for comment on the news of Shea's biological parents being identified, which follows a period of tumult for the Fertility Center of Orlando. The clinic announced a few weeks ago that it was closing and said another IVF network would open in the same location. That's not sketchy at all.
Not one bit.
Joe Bob's IVF clinic and Curly Fries. A decision the Fertility Center of Orlando said it made after thoughtful consideration and no doubt a very lame attempt to avoid legal ramifications, right? So, Robby, I have questions. Okay, so first of all,
I have got so many questions.
I have questions. So so the big one is this. Okay, so I understand like these white parents are raising this girl as their own. But what of the what about the genetic parents, the South Asians? I mean, sorry, we messed up. You know, these white people are raising your kid. I mean,
it got lost in the mail. It happens. Haven't you ever had a letter get lost?
It has happened. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
and I've received other people's letters. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, no, here's the question I have. So if a South Asian couple, if they get a white baby, do they just do like a baby swap, or they just agree just to keep
that would seem like that would seem like the obvious solution. I would think.
It sounds like the white parents are like, no, this is our daughter. We're keeping her. So what?
It does sound cultural imperialism.
Yeah. So what happens if the South is Pakistani, Bangladeshi, Indian, who South Asian? What does that even mean? Mm-hmm. If they said no, we do not want the white baby. We have a 7-Eleven. We must give the baby to. And the white parent says, no, I'm sorry. Your dot baby is now ours. I mean, baby.
Well, first of all, not all Indian people do the dot thing, but I will. We don't know if these people are Indian. We just know that they're South Asian. Okay, but it's right. No, I don't know how that works. Right? It seems to me like this is like it requires the wisdom of Solomon, right? Because this is like not really. And the question is, do the South Asian parents want their baby? And then, have you heard of imprinting? So there's this theory that I think it's bullshit, but there's this theory that even if you carry a child that's not genetically yours in your womb, it will somehow emotionally, physically, maybe mentally, intellectually somehow imprint from having been inside you, and you'll have like an influence on it. I mean, I think what is true is that the fetus is aware of you, can hear you, hears your voice, is more kind of somewhat accustomed to your voice after 9 months by the time it comes out. But it's not really, I don't think imprinting is a real thing. But I was just wondering if that could come into play in a potential legal battle here, where the non-bio mom, the white lady, says, "Listen, I carried this blastocyst, which became a daughter, in my womb for 9 months, yep. And that makes it mine.
It's my baby, 100%, and I have to side with the white mom." He's like, "Sorry, if you have a problem with it, blame the fertility clinic. They're the one that screwed up. But no, my body nourished this baby. I carried this baby for 9 months. It came out of my hoo-ha. This baby is mine, and you don't get to have it."
Really?
100%.
What if there's also, what if there is also a white baby now living in Dhaka?
Then they get to have a white baby with a dot.
You don't think they should just swap?
Oh God, no. I mean serious question. If you were, if you and your wife, and if this had happened, and if it turned out that she got that she had the wrong baby put inside of her,
mm-hmm.
would that baby be any less your kid? My answer is no.
I think my take would be like, of course I'm going to love this kid. I don't really, but here's the thing, right? So these are people, the kind of people who do IVF for the most part are people who they want a well, not necessarily, because you can do IVF with like a donor egg or donor sperm, right? But in this case, these are people who they didn't want to adopt a kid. They wanted a kid who was genetically from them. Yeah. So like that's not what they got. It's not what they paid for. Right. So they paid for a service they did not receive, and they received an item that was not what they paid for. Right. It's kind of like that they're kind of not really entitled to. The truth is, what about the brown parents? They got ripped off. Their baby is now,
they both got ripped off.
Is now in Florida with these whiteys.
Well, they both got ripped off. And ultimately, at the end of the day, it's the clinic that screwed up. It's the medical staff that screwed up. It's the lab tech that screwed up. They're the ones who have to make this whole, and nobody can do it is financially. That being said, the last time I checked,
your money's not going to make up for not having a daughter, though.
No, I'm pretty sure that it's more or less considered taboo to own another human and then just swap them. I think that we've moved past that. Even the Islamic world finally in the 70s said, no, maybe this whole owning humans is probably a bad idea, except for Libya. I guess you can still go buy your own freshly used human. But at the end of the day, though, that baby is yours. Sorry. I 100%.
You admit it's not cut and dry, though.
Oh, there's nothing about it cut and dry. But at the end of the day, though, it comes down to, do I love this kid? Is this our baby? I understand it's not ours genetically. That's fine. That is, instead of doing this the old-fashioned way.
By the way, these South Asians could live in Florida too. I'm assuming that we're sort of assuming they're living in like, Islamabad or whatever. But that's not necessarily so. Well, probably not even so.
Well, the fastest growing demographic in Atlanta right now is South Asians. So, hell, they could be there. Who knows? The point is, though, is at the end of the day, if you roll the dice and you decide you want to have babies and you don't want to do it the old natural way, then you get what you get. The old saying, if you want to make God laugh, you make
and you do get upset.
Well, for sure. But the thing is, though, at the end of the day, even if it's a oopsie, that baby's yours. No, if the two different families want to do a swap, hey, whatever. But if the white family is just like, no, this is our daughter, this baby's mine, and you're not going to get her. Sorry, you're not going to get the kid.
Don't you think there would be some legal basis to? Obviously there would be a strong legal basis. There must be all sorts of paperwork that the two sets of would-be parents signed with the IVF clinic that would probably govern any dispute here. Unless, do you think, I guess it's possible that the Asian couple simply decided to walk away and try again and, better luck next time.
Well, we don't even know if the Asian couple even got a white baby or not.
No, we don't know.
We have no idea. We're just assuming that they did.
No, true.
But at the end of the day, though, the important thing is that these kids are with a family that loves them, that's going to take care of them, that's going to cherish them, and is going to give them the best possible future. That's what matters.
Right. And I think that's clearly the case here in terms of this little girl. Obviously the white parents seemed sweet. This also goes to the question of what is a parent? Is a parent the person who is your biological relative, or is it the person who raises you and takes care of you?
Yeah. That's the thing that matters. It's not the conversation that we had yesterday, right? In regards to my daughter. No, ideally we'd prefer that you waited to have sex after you get married and you have a kid. But if you screw up, we're going to love that baby regardless. Don't kill it. Don't abort it. Don't trade it at a wet market for for a sack of flour. Don't kill it. Don't throw your baby in a dumpster. The important thing is that the baby is loved and that the baby is taken care of. That's the important thing. And to be totally honest with you, I'm not even sure that IVF should even be legal, because
I'm glad you brought that up, because I was curious about your thoughts about that.
I guess it just really depends on how it's done. I'm not an expert on this. I know that embryos, that's obviously an egg that's been fertilized. As a pro-life guy, as a Christian, I believe that life begins at the moment of conception. And a lot of these embryos, they're destroyed in the process of fertilization of.
That's true, because typically the clinic will implant 2 embryos with the thought that only one will make it.
Yeah. And so, from that standpoint, I'm opposed to it. If you're freezing an egg and it hasn't been fertilized, I have a problem with that, because no human life has been sparked yet, because you don't have the sperm. It's just, I don't know. I think that people don't just, whenever we try to play God, we typically screw up really, really bad, because we're not God as much as we try to be. And this just goes to show, I mean, crap happens. But at the end of the day, though, it's here. It's the system that we have. It's not going to go away. And I think that going forward, if a couple is going to go in and if they get a surprise, then you get what you get. You don't throw a fit, and the obligation is on you, that you love and that you take care of that kid.
Now, the thing is, in terms of, before we move on, I will say that, as someone who thinks that you think that there's a major Americans need to have more kids. Question: so does IVF increase the population, something you think is desirable, increase reproductivity, because it allows people who are older, who would not otherwise be able to get pregnant, to get pregnant? Or do you think it serves as a population depressant, because people who are younger are aware of the fact that IVF is a possibility for them, and therefore they put off having children?
To be honest with you, I think as a whole, it's probably a negative. I think the best thing that we could do is have a system, is have an economy that values the family, that values labor, and incentivizes families to be joined together in union and have kids the old natural way. Listen, marrying yourself to Bank of America is not a future. Marrying yourself to Google and freezing your future on the chance that maybe you can get a baby, that's dumb. Do it in the prime of your life. All
right. With that, let's move on to the next one. All right. A massive ocean hotspot is stretching across a 5,000-mile swath of the Pacific Ocean, and this is going to change the weather on the American West Coast in a big way this year. This swath goes from Micronesia to the coastal waters of California. Across the zone, ocean waters are now as much as 6 to 8 degrees above average. This has the attention of climate scientists, who say it could boost temperatures, humidity, and the threat of tropical storms in the western U.S. during the months ahead. Climate scientist Daniel Swain describes it as an increasingly extreme marine heat wave, as an exceptional event that is breaking records. The unusual ocean anomaly, the largest on the planet, could expand and intensify to cover the entire Pacific coast of North America by late summer. The development of this ocean hotspot, linked to a forming El Niño, also follows record warmth and a historic lack of snow in parts of the West earlier this year, which, of course, you and I talked about a little bit over by you in Montana. Such conditions could worsen as the warm waters influence weather patterns in the coming months. The marine heat wave is expected to be a key driver of conditions this spring and summer, and could yield a summer quite different in California and the Southwest than we've seen in quite some time, Swain says. Over the coming weeks, the West will experience unsettled conditions and variable temperatures. That's due to an enhancement in the subtropical jet stream. That's partly because of the marine heat wave. This will bring some beneficial moisture to the drought-stricken Intermountain West. As summer approaches, the marine heat wave will contribute to elevated overnight temperatures, meaning that you will not get much relief from hot daytime conditions in places like Southern California. There's Also, increased potential for uncomfortable humidity levels, something that's unusual in the western U.S. Warmer ocean waters increase evaporation, which can raise atmospheric moisture levels, especially along the coast. Later in the summer, the marine heat wave and a forming El Niño will probably join forces to boost monsoonial thunderstorm activity across the west. That's for people who aren't aware, there literally are monsoons in places like Arizona in the summer. That could increase fire risks in the region, as dry lightning strikes can spark wildfires and also flash floods in the desert. How do you die in the desert? Thirst and drowning. According to the National Interagency Fire Center, that's above average wildfire risk across several western states throughout June and July. The marine heat wave will also seriously boost the odds of an active eastern Pacific hurricane season extending westward toward Hawaii. It'll raise the chances of the remnants of a tropical storm reaching California, which would also spread moisture far and wide across the west, like Hurricane Hillary did back in 2023. This year's marine heat wave, a persistent and extensive area of well above average sea temperatures, is being driven by the Pacific meridional mode, which is called otherwise known as the PMM. This marine heat wave is the second big one in as many years to span the Pacific. Last fall, a record-breaking marine heat wave extended from East Asia into the North Pacific and still hasn't fully faded. Its intensity was amplified by the planet's long-term warming trend. So if you're living in the Western U.S., this will be something you'll need to keep track of.
Well, it cured the drought. So, I mean, that's a positive.
That's true. I mean, it will do that. But, it will do that.
I guess all just kind of boils down to if you think that this is just a natural cycle that the earth goes through, or if humans have an influence, and if they do, how much. I don't know. I mean, we know that the climate has changed. We went from tree rings well before coal power plants and SUVs were a thing. And if we were really concerned about climate change, we wouldn't be blowing up oil fields and blowing up gas pipelines and doing all this other stuff. So that's obviously not a concern. And if you're more worried about drought, and if you need more water to be able to grow more food to feed a growing or shrinking population, depending on where you are, bring on the hurricanes. Welcome to Florida.
Good times.
Yeah. I mean, listen, hurricanes, they're fun. Have you ever been in one?
No.
So
no, I haven't. So no, that's not true. That's a lie. I have been in one.
Tell me a hurricane story.
Hurricane Gloria. So I believe it was 1985, if memory serves. But it was one of the rare hurricanes to make it to New York City. And I was working at Bear Stearns as a trader on the trading floor, and the stock exchange closed for the day because of the weather. So I was also, at the time, I had multiple jobs, and one of my jobs was driving a taxi at night. So I was like, oh my God, there's going to be no taxis on the streets. This is my big chance to make some lucre. So I went to my taxi garage, and it was the one and only time. By the way, for people who watch the old TV show Taxi, the opening credits are filmed at this taxi garage, which was called the Dover Garage, which was on Hudson Street in the West Village. Anyway, I go to my garage, and it's not Danny DeVito, and it's not, and the inside doesn't look anything like it. The place had 120 taxis, and I'd never seen them all there, because usually they roll in, a new driver pops out, and it was 12-hour shifts, and they'd never be more than, say, 10 or 15 cabs being repaired or whatever. I go in there. All 120 taxis are parked there and out on the street. I'd never seen it. And I go in there, and I'm like, hey, I need a cab. And the guy goes, are you out of your mind? There's a fucking hurricane. Don't you see the weather? I'm like, yeah, I see the fucking weather. Now give me a fucking cab. So I roll out onto Hudson Street, and everything's blowing around. It's fucking phenomenal. And I start turning down Varick, and I can see all the way down to the old World Trade Center, because this is in the 1985. And I see windows popping out due to the pressure drop from up high, like 70th floor, and they're whirling around Lower Manhattan and smashing into the street like 20, 30 blocks away. And I'm like, holy shit, this is amazing. Anyway, people start come over and they're like, they run over and knock on the door. I keep all the doors locked, and I like lower the windshield, like the window, like maybe an inch. And I'm like, where are you going? It's like Upper West Side. And I'm thinking, all right, $50. And they're like, fuck you, it's got to be on the meter. I'm like, you can walk, and then no subways. Bye. And I start to pull away. It's like, okay, I'll do it. All right, $70. Like you said, 50. Yeah, 70 now. You want to make 90? You can argue.
Yeah, you were a dick.
I was a dick.
Yeah, you're renegotiating the bribe.
Exactly. Well,
I mean, it's capitalism.
It's capitalism. No. So I had like several places where it was like, multiple people wanted a cab. I'm like, okay, you can share. Well, I don't want to share. Take the subway. So I just kept doing that. I never made so much money, even working on New Year's Eve in New York City, as I did there. So I remember.
Oh, it was all cash too, wasn't it? No taxes.
All cash, no taxes. Yeah. It was a beautiful thing. $1,200.
That's awesome. And in the 80s, that was good money.
That was good money. And of course, people would be upset. But like, think they didn't give, they're not losing any sleep over the nights that I'm driving around, not getting any fares at all because nobody's out. So, it's like, it was dog eat dog. It's the law of the jungle. Anyway, so the thing is, the hurricane blew through, and I want to be fair here. It didn't seem to really last that long. I think we were just getting remnants. And I think we got like about maybe 6-7 hours of, and then after that, it was like beautiful. And then there were more, I think that might've been the eye passing through. And then it got like, a little, it was blustery, really, really blustery, very high winds. But I got to say, as a child of the Midwest who grew up a stone's throw away from where the Xenia tornado, killed a bunch of Ohioans in the early 70s. To me, a hurricane's a joke compared to a tornado.
Hurricanes are wild. I mean, one of the really fun things, whenever hurricanes coming in, you can lean into the wind and you won't fall down. The wind will just hold you up. It's wild. The first hurricane that I remember as a kid growing up was Hurricane Elena. It was the size of the Gulf of Mexico, and it probably went like 5 miles an hour, and it just rained. The flooding for that one was the biggest problem. Hurricane Ivan was the only one that really scared me. That hurricane was gnarly. It was like a bomb. It was not a good time.
So I guess the thing is, my understanding about hurricanes is the threat is basically it's the sustained, especially if it stays in one place, it's flooding and it's the sustained winds that last for a long time.
Because it softens the ground, starts ripping the trees up, and then it'll just start they'll dismantle a city if you give them enough time. They'll wreck it. A fast moving hurricane, even if it's a category 3 or category 4, they do damage, sure, but it's not catastrophic. It's the slow moving category 3 or a slow moving like Ivan. It was like a vacuum cleaner when it went through. I saw brick walls just blowing in. It's just houses just exploding from the pressure. My house back home, I was watching the bricks blow in, like actually pushing in. And I looked at kids as if that happens, we're meeting Jesus tonight, because there's nothing you can do. And bridges and stuff, the support beams just get washed away. Or what's worse, that the wind will get in, it'll bend the steel. It's so strong, and it'll just start ripping bridges apart. That's crazy. They're wild.
But a tornado is comparatively a pinprick, but it's much higher winds.
Yep. It's just no, exactly. And a tornado is kind of like a rifle. A hurricane is a shotgun. It's just everywhere. And the big slow moving ones, those are the ones that are a problem. But if your biggest concern though is drought, you have no better friend than a hurricane, because they solve that problem. And also, if you want to get rid of shanty towns, they are God's vacuum cleaner. They take care of that problem too.
Now, the thing about this though is so in the West, which has been suffering from drought for years, and of course we know the problems with the Colorado River and all that. This won't really solve your problem, right? I mean, you're going to get rain, and sure, you'll get some temporary relief, but what you kind of want is sort of recurring steady rain. You don't want like one deluge, one downpour, because then it all like washes away, right?
Well, not if you got these big old honking reservoirs. Like the whole reason Atlanta was running out of water because the artificial lake that they had that fed the city with water, it was going dry. I can't remember what the name of it was, but a few years ago, a hurricane went in, just stalled over Atlanta. It filled the reservoir. They got enough water now for like 40 years.
Really?
So, oh yeah.
But I mean, but the ground's like saturated in Atlanta, right? I mean, Georgia's lush and humid.
Well, Atlanta's built on clay. Nothing grows there.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, that's part of the problem. Is just like, why the hell would you build a city here of all the places?
Why would you put one here? You must know.
I don't have a clue.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. I mean, I just have to do with just
a big river there. That's usually why.
No, not around Atlanta, but it's just, I mean, what they did is just, I think probably what it was is just, if you follow the topography, it's the natural southern ending of the Cumberland Pass. So if you're trying to go from the Midwest through Eastern Tennessee, then Atlanta is like right there from a topographical standpoint where that pass actually fans out and ends. So that's probably why. That's why Stone Mountain's there.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I mean, so I guess that's something to, this is sort of like in the
pros
news.
And cons.
This is in the news that you can use category, right? Like, so.
The Iowa hurricane's wild.
Because it's so calm and beautiful.
Oh, it just stops. I mean, you go out and it's just all hell's is just coming loose. And then the eye of the hurricane starts going over you. And typically, depending on the hurricane, it's over you for 30 minutes to an hour. You get out the sun that comes out. It's just a crystal blue sky. And then all of a sudden you get nailed. The wind's coming from the opposite direction. And that's what screws stuff up because the trees are all leaning over one way. Oh, and then it switches over and it starts ripping stuff up. Yeah, it's pretty wild.
What a crazy weather system. All right. So last but not least, President Trump said that the U.S. is considering offering financial support not to people like you and me, Robby, but to the United Arab Emirates, a incredibly oil-rich ally that has been contending with economic fallout from the war in Iran. Poor babies that they are. The war has damaged oil and gas infrastructure throughout the Middle East, dealing a blow to economies that rely on the Strait of Hormuz to transport crude oil around the world. The Emirates, however, is an unlikely recipient of economic support, and the fact that it has inquired about assistance demonstrates the cascading effects of the conflict, not to mention naked greed. It's been a good ally of ours, and, these are unusual times, Trump said on CNBC. Mm-hmm. Trump added that the Emirates had been hit hard by Iranian retaliation and that it pledged to make substantial investments in the United States. So wait, let me get this straight. You want me to pay you money for the damage you suffered so that then you can invest back in the United States? Why don't you just fix your own stuff and I'll invest in the United States? Anyway, I don't get it. He noted that the country's wealth made the need for support surprising. I'm surprised because they really are rich, Trump said. Emirati officials met with Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent in Washington last week on the sidelines of the spring meetings of the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. The Treasury Department said that in their conversations, officials emphasized that the United States seeks to deter future attacks and ensure that energy markets are not further impacted by Iran. Kevin Hassett, director of the National Economic Council, said that he expected the Treasury Department to make every effort to help the Emirates. He also suggested, however, that financial support might not be necessary. We very much appreciate Trump's recognition of the UAE as one of America's most important economic and trade partners, the Emirates ambassador to the U.S. said in a post on X. Last year, the Treasury Department deployed a $20 billion currency swap through its Exchange Stabilization Fund to provide support not for Americans, but for Argentina's struggling economy as it tried to bolster the political prospects of Argentina's president, Javier Milei. Mr. Bessent has broad discretion over the use of the fund, which can be deployed to buy another nation's currency in exchange for dollars. thus propping it up. The Exchange Stabilization Fund had a net balance of about $44 billion as of February. It's not clear how big a lifeline the Emirates might need, or even if it really needs one at all. Some economists have suggested that the request appeared to be a political signal intended to solicit a demonstration of support from the country's chief ally, and that it was not a financial necessity. The Emirati currency is pegged to the dollar, and the country's central bank still has ample reserves, despite the disruption to oil exports that the war has caused.
I seem to recall that the UAE is a American ally and that they were egging this war on, or am I mistaken?
No, they absolutely were. They hate the Iranians. So yeah, they were, and they have a giant military base, U.S. military base, which is why they got attacked. I mean, it's not like the Iranians attacked them gratuitously. These are staging areas for U.S. attacks against Iran. These are completely fair military targets.
So then, isn't this a case of FAFO?
Yes, and I would say this is the FO part.
I agree. So what my question is why are we going to give this rich Arab country aid whenever we have hundreds of thousands of Americans struggling every single day just trying to survive?
I mean, seriously, people might say this is a cheesy question, but I haven't heard any answer to it. Have you? I mean, Whenever I ask it, nobody has anything to say about this.
Where are the Democrats? Where are these small government Republicans? There is nothing more hypocritical than a Republican who, whenever a Democrat is in the White House and the Democrats control Congress, squeak and scream about the debt, but are completely silent whenever their boy spends more than any president in history combined.
It's like, not to mention, right? Like, we are currently blowing through $2 billion or a day minimum. Like, that's just the upfront costs, right? It's going to really be like closer to $3 billion a day for basically co-fighting Israel's war against Iran. And, again, I guess I would have a problem with this for obvious reasons, even if we had all of our ducks in a row. But I mean, this is a country where we literally every single day, people are told that they can't get a medical procedure because they can't afford it. Every single day, people are evicted from their homes because they can't pay their rent. Every single day, people tell their intelligent, brilliant, hardworking student children, I'm sorry, you can't go to the college that accepted you because we can't afford to send you. Every single day, people sit choked in their cars, sucking up exhaust fumes on American highways, in choking in traffic because there's no high-speed rail like every other modern industrialized country, and even some non-modern, non-industrialized countries have, and because we can't have nice things. We are in a country where we can't even have really our own government space program. We've outsourced it to SpaceX and other private corporations. Yeah. So we're broke, right? I mean, like, by most standards, we're like number 38th in terms of living standards. Our infant mortality is rising. Our national life expectancy has been declining. We have this opioid epidemic that nobody seems to give a shit about. No one's doing anything about. We have areas that are dangerous in various cities where there's not enough cops. There's not enough ability to maintain law and order. I mean, there's so much stuff that Americans need and are being told constantly that they can't have. I don't know how on earth a government can think they could even justify this. An idea like this is so outlandish. You would just think that, like, Trump would be like, "Are you kidding me? My people will kill me if I ask for this." Like, sorry, shake whatever. Can't do it. I can't believe that they think this is something the American people will tolerate, and I can't believe that they're right. It is something the American people will tolerate because they keep doing it. We keep giving money to these foreign countries, and nobody on the right, middle, or on the left protests it, does anything about it, votes against the people who do it. They just don't care.
I think it's just apathy. I think people are just checked out. People have rightly come to the conclusion that that it doesn't matter, that our government not only does not care about what you think, that your government actively hates you. And I think that's true. And that's what really worries me, because once you get to a certain point, that apathy becomes anger. And then what happens? That's when it explodes. You have a country, you have 360 million people. It's this vast transcontinental nation. We have a majority of nothing. We don't have a common language. We don't have a common history. We don't have a common religion. We have nothing in common, more and more increasingly.
Right.
And when this thing explodes, listen, I've told you this before, on and off the air. I am terrified that when the United States balkanizes, that it's going to make the French Reign of Terror look like a complete joke, because it's going to rupture along ethnic, religious, and cultural lines. And those are the most brutal types of wars that there are. And there's not going to be enough resources for everybody. And our government, they do not care. They do not care. And that's the thing that scares the hell out of me the most.
No, they don't care. And I mean, I guess, yeah, look, this is like what we I always think about the expression on the face of Ceausescu, Nicolae Ceausescu, the dictator of Romania.
Ordering the guards to let him go.
Yeah. Yeah. And the look on his face, right? He can't believe it's happening. He's minutes away from being shot to death on national television. And it's kind of like he and his wife are like, but what do you mean you guys all hate us? It's like, well, we all hate you. We've always hated you. We want you to die. That's and people are always surprised by that. Like the rage that comes out of any revolution is like sort of like there was all this pent up resentment and nobody ever addressed it all along. And you could the truth is, objectively, if you'd paid attention, you would have seen it coming millions of miles away.
Yeah. I mean, I once read, I don't remember. I want to say it was just an online essay. I don't know how true it is. You probably know more about this than I do. But I was reading in St. Petersburg, the Russian aristocrats in 1918. There's a bunch of them. They're in a theater. They're watching a play. Like everything is perfectly fine. While outside, the city populace was on a full-on revolt, and they were just in a complete denial. So I think these people, they're in Washington D.C. and their little multi-million-dollar bubble.
Mm-hmm.
It's the richest zip code in the country. They're perfectly fine. And they don't realize that once you get outside of DC, like take a 40-minute drive, things are falling apart. And it's that way all over the country.
DC, if they go to the southeastern part of the district, it's brutal.
I think that's really what they are. I think they're living in a bubble. They think that everything is fine, that the whole country has to look like what it is here. It's just like Marie Antoinette, when she said, let them eat cake. I don't think that she really meant for the peasants just to go eat cake. I think that her mindset was like, well, why don't we just feed them? But at that point, it was too far gone. It was lost. And that's the problem.
The irony here is that actually she didn't say that.
I'm sure she didn't. I'm sure it's apocryphal.
It's apocryphal. So here's the thing. We know she didn't say it for a number of reasons. First of all,
she didn't speak French, did she?
No, she didn't speak French. Exactly. She only spoke German. So she was Austrian. And the thing is that she would never have said something like that, because the truth is, both her in particular, but also her husband, King Louis XVI, were actually very sympathetic to the problems of the poor and actually really cared about them. But I've long had this theory that, revolutions tend not to happen under strong men, right? Louis XVI was a weak king. Nicholas II was a weak czar. They're basically paying the price for the abuses that occurred previously and the oppression that occurred previously under rulers who were a lot harsher and would have just sent in the troops to kill all the protesters and all the revolutionaries. Louis XVI would never have done that. He tried to be an accommodationist. I'm not saying the French Revolution was a bad thing, but there's a lot of it's kind of like it wasn't really fair what happened to Louis and certainly not to Marie Antoinette.
But imagine how much worse the French Revolution would have been if the demographic makeup of France then had been what it is now.
What do you mean? In what way?
Like if you had a couple of million Moroccans or Algerians living in Paris, and then the entire country falls apart because people are tribal. And the first thing that happens whenever there's no more resources, it's either I get mine at the expense of yours or vice versa. And then you have a different population, has a different history, has a different culture, has a different religion than what you have. And that's how you get the pogroms in Germany. I mean, people are very tribal, and the outsider is the first one that gets butchered. And here in this country, who's the outsider? It depends on where you are.
Yeah, it depends. I was going to say it depends on where you are.
And and that's the problem. And that's the thing that I'm really concerned about. And I mean this sincerely, not just in the United States, but in Europe. When this whole system implodes and white people remember who and what they are and what they are able to do, and you have all these people who are there who either, and the perception is that no, you're living off the government tit, off of welfare and all this other stuff, these other things, and now there's not enough for me. What's going to happen? Are they going to go full Viking and just like, we are going to make France great again by making French only again?
Well, I mean, I hope not, but I mean that
the hope isn't the plan.
I think something like that could happen. No, it's not. Something like that is more likely to happen in Europe than here.
For sure. America's too big. We balkanized. We would just splinter. In Europe, it would be if you want to say a Holocaust, piss off enough whiteys, you'll get one. That's what I'm worried about.
I think the post-Soviet, experience is closer to what we're going to see. Not necessarily 50 states become 50 nations, but or maybe that happens originally, and then like they start to form geographic regional nation. Yeah, it'll be regional.
It would be regional. But the question is, how do you feed 360 million people with no infrastructure?
Well, they won't all get fed.
Get hungry?
Well, I mean, we do have. Look, obviously, the Californians are going to be able to eat, no problem.
But how are you going to get stuff to your WalMarts? That's the problem. The trains aren't running. I mean,
you'll have mass hunger like you did in the 90s in the Soviet Union.
Yeah, for sure. And then what happens if you have all these people and all of them are armed to the teeth? That's what I'm talking about here.
Well, they'll be armed to the teeth in Montana-stan. They won't be armed to the teeth in Connecticut-stan.
But do you know that?
Well, they don't have guns there.
Well, then can people from, say, New Hampshire stand just go in and take it over? So you now belong to us?
Well, not all problems are resolved by violence, right? I mean,
no, that's usually where things start, though. Like, no, if every problem looks like a nail, then the only tool that you need is a hammer. And then you figure out later on that doesn't work.
There'd be a lot of opportunism, right? There would be, I do think like with the evaporation of central authority, you'd have people, looting and stealing and taking over even private companies instead of public companies like it was in the former USSR. Let's get back to this story though. I mean, okay, so this is a question for you as a righty. Yeah. Why does the populist right, the MAGA right, why are they not pissed about even the suggestion that we might want to send $500 million in hard-earned American tax dollars to the Arabs? I mean, who are swimming in oil wealth?
Well, the answer is that we are. Just the problem is that righties don't, as a rule. I mean, you can make the case for Charlottesville, maybe Trump's riot that he touched off on Election Day. Typically, mass protests and rioting is not something you see on the right. That tends to be more along the lines of what happens with the left.
That's true.
A lot of right-wingers still believe, at least in the facade of a system where you're able to elicit some kind of change through civic discourse. I think that when they realize that doesn't happen, I think that's when you start. I think that's really going to start seeing a lot more actual, honest to God, right-wing violence. But I think right now, though, is that there's still a perception because when Trump got elected in 2016, a lot of people like, no, there is still a chance. There's enough of the old Republican infrastructure, small r, not big R, that we can enforce our will on a local level and maybe some degree to a national level. I think that's what this is.
Yeah.
The question is, though, is that why is it when that's one of the reasons I'm interested in what happens with Fishback. The polls show that he's underwater, he doesn't have a chance.
Right.
The question is, are the pollsters asking the right people?
Well, that is always the question. But I mean, the pollsters are usually right about something as simple as which candidate is going to win, right?
Well, sure. If you're asking people in terms of the political party, because Florida has a closed primary system. Mm-hmm. One of the things that you're going to need to look at is how many people are registering to vote Republican before this primary.
Right.
If you say a massive number of people registering to vote Republican,
that's what happened in 2016 for Trump.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a chance. If Fishback, he doesn't have to win, he has to get close. If he gets close enough, then that sends a signal to the right. It's like there is a chance if we organize that we can do this thing peacefully without resorting to war. Because rightly or wrongly, there's still that institutional memory about what happened the last time that you had an organized rebellion against federal power.
Things got spicy. And
a million people died.
All right.
So that's the issue.
And with that, I think we're going to leave that there so that I have time to pee before the DMZ America podcast. DMZ America podcast coming up with Scott Stantis, guest cartoonist joining for an interview is Marshall Ramsey. You'll want to check that out. Interesting guy. That's coming up in just a few minutes. As always, Robby, a pleasure. And we will be back with Robby again, filling in for Manila tomorrow. Until we get Manila back, I don't even think we'll hear from her until the weekend, probably. But anyway, congratulations again, Manila. And please tune into TMI, 10 a.m. Eastern time, Monday through Friday. Stay tuned for DMZ.
Yep. And I'll go ahead and rate us over there now.
Okay. Thank you. I'm
welcome.
Doing it right now.